We figured out that it's Lycra. We haven't figured out the actual brand. I figured out how to put on the go live button, so we're live. How about that?
Yeah, we're live. So how do we share this with people? So we have people watching us.
Yeah, well, I already did that. It's going live to the fantasy football discussion on Facebook. It's live to Twitter. It's live to YouTube. All the regular places. The Twitter people can't comment since Periscope died, but the fantasy football discussers can comment. I think if you're a fantasy football discusser, please comment now so that I can confirm, because we're more dependent on listener questions today than ever before. Otherwise we're just going to be talking blindly without a show sheet, without a leader, without anything. And in that case, pretty much all we'll have is an hour worth of jokes about Canadian Thanksgiving being in October.
No, first of all, I knew that Canadian Thanksgiving was in October. And the reason I knew that is because I looked at my work calendar. And I chuckled because I'm like, what the fuck the Indians had, or
whoa.
What do Canadians have to be thankful for? And someone told me it's because they have the United States to the south of them, protecting them on this side of the globe. So that's you're welcome. Yeah, we're like the big stupid.
What do you protect us from exactly?
Well, mostly from us, because we're terrible. But you know what I mean. We're like the big stupid brother that like we kind of like we beat you up and we kind of like give you like mental health issues your entire life because we've scarred you. But we love you deep down. We'd never say it or admit it.
That is truly a fascinating view on the American-Canadian relationship. So supposedly we're going live to fantasy football discussion right now. The thing is, Chase gave me pretty much no instructions as to do this, so I just clicked the button that says go live to fantasy football discussion. I guess we'll find out. I'm in the Facebook room. I can't see this broadcast, but maybe it's there. I'm unsure. These are the questions that I have for sure. These are legitimate questions, but we're gonna do the best that we can. Shane, how was your? Did you enjoy the football this week, buddy?
The football was exciting. The Monday night game might have been the greatest fantasy football night that's ever existed.
Fuck no, hero. Fuck no. Also, I'm not so sure that we're all that monetized anyway.
No, we are not very monetized. It's kind of like a negative times a negative equals a positive, so it's fine. No, man, I'm lucky enough in a bunch of leagues. I got Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews together, and they absolutely just destroyed people. It was great. Like there's a few leagues I went into, I was down by 50 points and I was like, I could probably come back, and I ended up winning by 40. You know what I mean? So like if you were just to look at the scores on Tuesday, you had no idea that you're that close to losing. You know what I mean? You didn't realize like, wow, I was like, if it wasn't for probably the second half of that game, I would have lost many games. But hey,
definitely. For sure. I have so much Lamar in fantasy, but I'm also a Colts fan. So I was very conflicted because I was winning money as I was losing my will to live at the same time. And it hurts so much because I love Lamar Jackson so much. Like he's probably my favorite quarterback to watch play football. And I support him so heavily. I don't understand why he feels the need to ruin my life against my own team. But that's what we got. Should I play the fancy little music here and kick off the show? Do you want to just sing it instead?
Fantasy intervention. Wednesday nights come.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Shane Manila, Jacob Sanderson, and Chase Vernon.
cutting off my song like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was getting painful. Hey, look at this. We're seeing comments from Facebook. That means we're successfully live to Facebook.
Nice.
It means that we don't need Chase to do this show.
We've never needed Chase. Chase, I love him, but man, all he does is give us homework.
We're still doing that. I just didn't write it in a sheet.
Oh, well, I don't even have a link to it. So let's get to some listener questions.
I thought about it this morning, and I had some stuff to do. And I thought, we do the exact same show format every week. Does Shane really need me to write out a show sheet for him to be able to name 4 dudes who are outside the top 24 to start? And I thought, no, Shane's a pretty smart dude. He'll figure it out.
What about the rest of the homework that he likes to give us?
Is there other homework that we do? What other homework?
Is there players that were dropped that you would like to not have been dropped?
Oh, I don't want to do any of that shit. That's boring.
Yeah, no. So let's go.
Yeah, let's start off. We're going to start off with some of these listener questions, and then we can just kind of talk about whatever is interesting to fill time in between them.
Hey,
I hope that people just keep coming with listener questions so that we never have to fill time.
Did you see John Gruden resigned? I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, do you want to talk about the Gruden thing?
No, I mean, everyone's beat it to death, right? The guy's a racist. He's homophobic and also very stupid because he put it in the emails. What? Guys, emails, in case anyone doesn't know, like most emails can get hacked anyway. If people want your information from their email, they're going to do that. But especially when you're corresponding with someone's work email, that's always open for business. And
if I had to guess, there was no one more after Hillary Clinton's emails than John Gruden. I bet he was leading that charge. Stop the steal, John. No, I mean, it's obviously he's a racist, he's a bigot, he's a homophobe, he's a terrible person, and there was discussions in league chats. People were saying, "Oh, cancel culture." No, I mean, no, it's not even about that. You're supposed to lead 53 plus people into battle every Sunday. Being a coach is not just about scheming up Spider 2Y banana. You got to be a person that is able to connect to people. You have to be a spokesperson of an organization. One would hope that you are an actor for good, in that, and he obviously is not. So Gruden's out. Does this affect the Raiders at all from a fantasy perspective to you? Is anyone getting unlocked?
I'm excited just to see what's going to happen with they've already started using Josh Jacobs more in the passing game because they've realized Kenyon Drake is just freaking awful. And Peyton Barber's been a little banged up. I just wonder, maybe this is going to unlock Josh Jacobs. I hope maybe this is going to, now he's going to get
that guy.
I do. I want him to get 10 targets a game.
Oh, God.
15 rushing attempts and RB1 season for Josh.
That'd be a fucking nightmare for me. I don't know how I'd ever recover.
Some targets to go to Brian Edwards, more than
I want.
More than 3
I even accepted Ruggs because he got me the exact number of points I needed to win the other week. And so I appreciate him now.
That too, Ruggs. Like, guys, get him like 8 targets a week. 8 targets. Imagine what someone with that speed could do if you get him the ball. In intermediate routes and let him do his thing. Oh, you don't have to imagine it. You can look at the tape from Alabama and see what happens when you do that. So.
Yeah, I was kind of in on Ruggs last year, even though he's not, all that analytically promising, mostly because I just really thought it would be simpler than this. Like you have a guy who runs 4.2. I mean, isn't a good play just, hey, outrun the guy against you? I mean, every time you have him in single coverage, why is the play not run really fast down the field and see if you can outrun the guy who's not as fast as you? That seems like it'd be a pretty successful play if you run it enough times. And then the other play could be, hit you on a bubble screen and then try to run past dudes. Doesn't seem that hard. Let's get some questions going. Is Marvin Jones going to go off in London? Shane, Marvin Jones, how are you feeling about Jacksonville? Because last week, Jamal Agnew and Tavon Austin got more targets than Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault, which is awesome. That's what we want to see.
I have no idea what the hell. I can't even predict that offense at this point, so I just want to stay away from it. I threw Laviska in there after his big game, and then they were like, no, it's Tavon Austin and Jamal Agnew. I don't know. He's had 2 weeks where he's barely been targeted. I don't know what their offensive game plan is, to be quite honest with you. There doesn't seem to be a real semblance of a plan.
Well, Meyer certainly doesn't know. Whenever they ask him, he's like, "Oh, I wasn't aware of that."
Yeah. Meyer doesn't know how his running backs are being used. I honestly, if I can, I'm staying away from Marvin Jones, 0-9-0. He's definitely a guy that's got too many questions from me this week.
That was the best. They're like, why was James Robinson not in the game on the 4th and 1 from the 1? And instead they subbed in Carlos Hyde. He was like, "Oh, I don't really know. I don't pay attention to these things." It's like, well, you were down 12 with a 4th and 1 from the 1. It was kind of the most pivotal play in the game, and they gave a hand off to Carlos Hyde. I mean, there's so many things you could have done. You could have done a run with James Robinson. You could have done a Trevor Lawrence quarterback sneak, which Meyer said that Lawrence was not ready to do a quarterback sneak. I don't know how much preparation it takes to run quarterback sneak.
You saw that quote too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just one of
the most ridiculous quotes I've ever seen.
I put my phone down and just shook my head for an hour and a half.
I mean, how hard is it to run quarterback sneak? You grab it, you lean.
So all that to say, we're staying away from Marvin Jones this week. It's nothing personal. It's just I don't know what's going on with that offense.
I absolutely hate Urban Meyer. J.D. McKissick, Devontae Booker Giants, and Gesicki. Pick 2. Injuries hit me. The wide receiver from Lions. I'm assuming he means Amon-Ra St. Brown, but
I don't know. He could literally just mean like the next guy up in the Madden when like too many guys go down and they're just like wide receiver from Lions.
It reminds me of NCAA. You know, when they couldn't use players' likeness, and so you just logged into NCAA, and if you didn't click automatically generate player names, your offense was just wide receiver number 4, wide receiver number 82, which is pretty much what the Lions are. So it's fair. Are you going McKissick, Booker, Gesicki, or Lions wide receiver?
I'd go Booker, and I mean, I hate being the guy that's like, give me a wait and see approach. I kind of want to wait and see. Well, I got look. If Tua plays this week, I'd go with Booker and Amon-Ra St. Brown. If Tua sits again and Brissett starts, I'll go with Booker and Gesicki. Booker, even in a negative game script, you're fine with that because he's a pass catching specialist. So he's going to see a ton of work either way, even if he gets 15 carries.
Overselling Booker's.
He's going to get 15 carries for 30 yards, and then probably like 6 receptions for 15, which is fine with me in PPR.
Yeah, I would do Booker. I think he has a good floor. He sucks, but I could easily see him just sort of stumbling your way to 8 points there with Devontae Booker, catching a bunch of checkdowns, especially because they don't have any wide receivers. So you're going to see some checkdowns this week. And then I would do McKissick. They're going against the Chiefs, a very angry Chiefs team that's 2-3. I expect them to be losing. And it's been pretty clear that the way that they use the running backs in Washington is if they're ahead, they're going to pound it with Gibson. When they fall behind, they play J.D. McKissick quite a bit. They also are struggling at receiver. De'Ami Brown is injured. Samuel's injured. Cam Sims, I think, is also banged up right now. So they're going to need some receiving out of their tight ends and running backs. Of course, Logan Thomas is out. So I would play McKissick and Booker. But, yeah, any of those I think is an acceptable play. Thoughts on Thielen? Stay the course or trade? Usage has been down. Name still brings value. Thielen's usage has always been down, but he just scores touchdowns at a ludicrous pace. I don't know. I've never been a Thielen guy, at least recently. Shane, what are your thoughts on Thielen? You're probably more into Thielen than I am.
No, I mean, but is his usage really that down? I hadn't noticed his target.
I think he caught his first pass in the 4th quarter this week.
That's not great. Yeah, that's great. That's true. He had 2 receptions, both in the 4th quarter on last week. If you can trade off his name cachet, I'm all for that. I'm always for that. We thought he was going to have a down year compared to last year just because of the regression from the touchdowns. And now we're seeing what it's like without the touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if I can trade him, I definitely would. And again, it's going to be look at the position you need. It's probably running back because everyone needs a running back right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're definitely be open to trading Thielen, but with anything, it depends on the return. I definitely think there will be brighter days ahead for Thielen. The issue is he's the clear number 2 now. Jefferson has, I think, 8% higher target share. He's the guy. And Thielen is the secondary guy in an offense that really wants to establish the run as much as possible. They're also throwing to running backs at a higher rate than they ever have, even when Cook is missing time. It just makes it tough for a secondary wide receiver to be consistent. But we saw this last year with Thielen, like Shane said. In games where they're passing a lot, where they fall behind, then Thielen's a really good play. Games where they're up by a head, he's not getting that many targets. It's just last year he kind of covered up seemingly every down game by scoring a touchdown or two. And this year it's falling off a little bit. But I would guess that some touchdowns are in his future, as are some games with 9-10 targets if they fall behind. Who are they playing this week? They're playing someone. They're playing Carolina, so that maybe they'll fall behind this week and they'll actually have to throw it a little bit more. Devontae Booker or Michael Pittman?
Man, Michael Pittman is getting to the point where I don't know that I can sit him. Yeah. He's quickly moving into that territory. That's a good problem to have. I'll go upside and I'll go with Pittman.
Yeah, I'll take Pittman because I think his floor is about as safe as Booker's. I mean, he's seeing easy 25 to 30% of the targets every week. Wentz has looked way better these last 2 weeks. Really, I think Wentz has looked as good these last 2 weeks as he's been since like 2018. The Colts stole that game from Wentz by being inept at coaching. But he played.
You don't think they should have been playing for field goals in the fourth quarter with 6 minutes to go when they were only up by like 3 points?
All right, we're gonna get into it. Some people are joining. I'm a Colts fan. That Monday night game, it was so painful. I mean, first of all, hats off to Lamar Jackson. He played incredible, and he earned every piece of that comeback victory. But my word, I mean, they were out 22-3. Wentz threw for 400 yards. Like, he played so well in that game. He was absolutely dealing. And the drive that they had, the drive they had up 8 was egregious, where it was a 3rd and 8, and they just ran Taylor directly into the line with an injured kicker.
Yeah.
Like, they had their punter go out for a field goal early because they weren't even sure he could kick. I mean, it was just so ludicrous that would be the play call when Wentz was playing fantastic. I mean, really, like, you traded a first-round pick for the guy. He has 400 yards passing, and you don't trust him to at least attempt a pass on 3rd and 8 to pick up a game-stealing first down. Truly bizarre. And then the worst part, to me at least, was the Ravens had 1st and goal with 2 minutes, and they got stopped on the first 2 plays. The Colts didn't use any timeouts. The Ravens let the clock tick all the way down. And then Wentz led the drive. They got into field goal range. They missed the kick in regulation. But, of course, they're going to miss a 47-yarder because their kicker's so injured that he can't even play this freaking week. And they didn't use their timeouts. They could have had 2 minutes. They could have gone all the way down the field. They could have scored a touchdown. It was an absolute disaster. But the point is, Pittman played great. He's been playing great. They get the Texans this week. I think we'll have a nice game out of Wentz, nice game out of Pittman. Pick 3, Godwin, Thielen, Waddle, Booker, Tony Giants. I think, come on, we gotta be aware that Tony plays the Giants at this point. I mean, he had the greatest game by a rookie wide receiver ever, and then he punched a dude. It was just a resounding performance. Michael Pittman, and I'm gonna guess that's Miles Sanders, but it also could be Emmanuel.
See, I was guessing Emmanuel, so that completely changes I'm picking Tony and Pittman.
The sad thing is it probably changes it negatively. Like, you'd probably rather play Emmanuel Sanders than Miles.
Oh, no,
Sanders.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I'd definitely rather play Emmanuel Sanders than Miles Sanders right now. Tony, okay, congratulations, Chase. You're not on the show. Thank God. Apparently, Tony is really good. And we don't even have to admit that to Chase, so that's awesome. I mean, the dude looked.
And he even had Donovan Peoples-Jones get 70 yards this week. Like, he would have been insufferable.
Yeah, I mean, Tony, and just that one play where he washed Diggs.
I know.
It was beautiful, and it's on route running, which wasn't really his forte. How can you not play Tony right now? They need something on that offense, and they're not just using him in one way. They used him all over the field, which is what you want to see. We just talked about Pittman. I can't really sit Pittman. If that's Emmanuel Sanders, I'm going Emmanuel Sanders
over Godwin.
Yeah, I can't. I
11 targets last week.
That's fine. That was last week. I can't ever get that Tampa Bay offense correct. every week, and I know because I have Mike Evans and AB on several teams, and just every week I pick the wrong guy. Although last week any of them would have been the right guy.
Oh my gosh! So what you're saying is it's in week 6 of 2021. You, Shane Manila, are playing Kadarius Toney over Chris Godwin.
I mean, when you put it like that, nah, then I'll put.
What would you have thought? What would you have thought preseason if I had told you that by week 6 you would be playing Kadarius Toney and Emmanuel Sanders over Chris Godwin and Adam Thielen?
Someone punched me in the face a lot. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you've convinced me. I'll go with Godwin, Toney, and Pittman.
Okay, I would go with Godwin for sure. Yeah, I'd probably Godwin and Pittman. And man, it's tough to sit Thielen for Toney, but I also think that I probably would. He's just, I don't know. He's young, he's dynamic, he's fun, and Thielen's like a old brittle man. I don't know. I never want to play Thielen, but I don't really have that problem because I don't think I roster a whole lot of Thielen, to be honest. Right. Dustin says, keep in mind that Toney exploded with literally every starting wide receiver and their starting running back out, with him and dudes who work at Foot Locker playing wide receiver last week. Yeah. Yes, but I mean, how many times have we seen this situation where there's a guy where everybody else is out, right? And then we're like, oh my God, this guy's going to get 1 million targets. We have to play this guy. And then they don't do anything, right? So I think, I think that it's not just an accident. Like it works both ways. It also works that the Cowboys had nobody else to cover because everybody else was a Foot Locker employee. And they had their best corner on Toney, and Toney virally cooked them on a route, right? So I definitely think it's still impressive. I don't think we can take that away from him. I'm not going to put him in the Hall of Fame for 1 week, but I'm not going to discount it. I think that was just a really, really impressive performance. I mean, he still had to win his routes, right? Like he no matter what else there was, he still had to win his routes, and he won his routes at least 10 times.
Yeah, it's like you said, you know how many times we've pointed at players and gone, well, he's going to get the opportunity this week, so he's probably going to do something with it, and he doesn't. And the thing is, I didn't see the practice reports today. Were Slayton and Shepard practicing?
I've heard that Shepard is on track to return, and I'm not 100% sure about Slayton. I'm not so sure that one matters as much.
I mean, I would hope that the Giants would have enough sense to go, okay, we can't play both these. Like, these guys can't take away snaps from Toney, and Toney shouldn't be affected by them anyway, to be quite honest with you. Galladay's not going to play.
Shepard, and Galladay's not playing this week anyway, so you can play Shepard and Toney and whoever. And
Saquon's not playing, so you've literally one explosive player on that team that's good, because Slayton ain't it. So yeah, I'm fine with Toney this week, and I know, but not a lot has changed since last week for him.
Better punch Toney or Javon Wims.
Ooh, I'm gonna go with. It's been a long year. I don't want to go with recency bias and just pick Toney's. So I'm gonna go with Javon Wims, because it actually came at a more inopportune time. I think they were in that game when he.
It was a playoff game, also. I believe.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Wims.
Anthony Miller was in the playoff game. Javon Wims.
I'm going to go with Wims because I think Wims, like I said, I think the Bears were in that game. I could be wrong. It was a year ago. Whereas Toney's, they were completely out.
Wims was a game that actually went to overtime.
Yeah, so then Wims, because just this pure stupidity of it, compounded by that.
It's Wims because Toney, missed. Toney, he had a fantastic game playing receiver, but I don't think he might have a future in rapping as well. Young Joka, but he definitely does not have a future in boxing because he actually took the time to wind up. He was punching a helmet, which is quite a large target. I don't know why people punch people with helmets on. Like, it hurts you more than it hurts them. It's very dumb, but they do it. So, but quite a large target, and he barely scratched the side of it. So it's actually a pretty pathetic display. If you're going to get ejected, make it worth it, man. Get a better punch in, right? Just brain someone in the skull like you're playing hockey. I don't really know what it is with these football players and their weak-ass punches. Anyway.
So I guess here's the good thing. You don't really – so throwing a punch at someone with a helmet, you really don't want to connect. So if you miss, you kind of get the best of all worlds, right? You're like, oh, I'm kind of tough. I threw the punch. But then you don't break your hand on a helmet, so –
yeah, it's a big plus. Big plus. Yeah. Definitely. Tony is a monster. Yes, he is a monster. I admit it. Tony owned me. Kadarius toned me.
Gonna get his name tattooed right here.
Yes, but I'm gonna get Young Joka tattooed, I think.
Mm.
All right, let's move back up a little bit. Should I bench Cousins for Tua this week? Oh, speaking of physical altercations, did you see the Cousins Zimmer celebration at the end of the game?
I did not.
So basically, after they won on the field goal, the one that made Dan Campbell cry, then Cousins, who's just one of the worst celebrators of all time, right? Like he's just unbelievably awkward at celebrating. He's definitely like he's up there with Pete Weber. You know who Pete Weber is, right?
Yeah.
The bowling guy.
Who is actually a great celebrator, but
anyway, Cousins goes and he starts like kind of pushing Zimmer, like like how guys feel the need to physically assault other guys when good things happen for some reason to prove our testosterone. So he's like kind of pushing Zimmer, and Zimmer's not really pushing back, and so Cousins decides I'm just gonna push him way harder. So he like pushes this 65-year-old cancer survivor like very hard, and then Zimmer just pushes him back even harder. But they're both like kind of smiling, but they also seem very angry. And then the backup quarterback has to like break them up. And it was just hilariously awkward to watch Cousins fight this 65-year-old man. And I feel like Zimmer has just been so angry at Cousins about this vaccine thing all summer that this was like his excuse to take out a little bit of his frustration. And I just appreciated it.
He might have, I mean, for all we know, he might have had a COVID vaccine in his hand when he pushed it.
Maybe you just stabbed him with the vaccine.
Yeah.
So answer Frank's question. Should you bench Cousins for Tua this week if Tua comes back?
I love Tua, and his matchup is just dreamy. But I want to see that offense because they're not going to have Devontae Parker. They're not going to have Will Fuller. I would go ahead and just wait another week to see what they do with him, to see how he looks on the field, how they actually use him, and then hopefully the following week he'll at least get Devontae Parker back.
That would be the hope. Are they not going to get Parker for sure?
Oh, I made that up. Yeah, no, he should be fine. So he should be all right, I guess. But he won't have Will Fuller, who really makes that offense. I like Tua a lot. You know that coming into the season, I was a Tua apologist, I guess is the word I'm using now. I was a Tua apologist. But you have the luxury of starting Kirk Cousins, who at worst is going to be a high-end QB2 at worst. I'll start Cousins.
You're starting Kirk Cousins. You like that?
No.
Flex spot, or I'm not sure. The flea spot. Tony once again. People continue to tell us that Kadarius Toney's on the Giants. I think,
is there another Tony?
There's no one else named Tony, is there?
Is there?
I don't think so. Kadarius Toney, he of the Giants. Kareem Hunt. What team does Kareem Hunt play for? Pittman, Devontae Smith Eagles, and Miles Sanders. The M Sanders is helpful because that one we there's confusion. So Tony Giants, Hunt Pittman, D Smith Eagles, or Miles Sanders.
Ooh, jeez. I don't know how many do you get to start. Literally just one.
I'm assuming one. This is flex spot, not spots.
Okay, you're not gonna like this, but Devonta, he's playing the worst pass defense in the league, and the Eagles are going to be in a negative game script because they're playing against one of the best offenses in the league. So that works out well. Thank you, Tampa, the gift that keeps on giving. I'm going to go with Devonta. I'm expecting a blow up from the kid. But I'll tell you right now, I love all your options. If I had to put them in order, I would probably go Smith, Pittman, Toney, Hunt, Sanders. And honestly, except for Sanders, I'd feel comfortable starting any of those guys.
Yeah, you're certainly not starting Miles Sanders against the Bucs. The Bucs do not allow running backs to accumulate fantasy points. And even in good matchups, Sanders' own coach doesn't allow him to accumulate fantasy points. So I would start I would actually start Kareem Hunt. I think that game's a shootout. He seemingly gets a lot of goal line work in addition to the receiving work. He's kind of game script proof. But I like Hunt a lot. I like Smith a lot, and those would be my clear top two. But I'm totally down with Pittman or Tony as well. Frank is at work, so that's why he didn't spell flex. I apologize, Frank. We're so glad that your employer is paying you to watch us talk about fantasy football. We greatly appreciate.
Your employer rocks. They're awesome.
We love your employer. Shout out to Frank's employer, a sponsor of Fantasy Intervention. Nick Bronner asks, "What do we do with AJ Brown?"
You hold him. I mean, what can you do? It's AJ Brown. I mean, look, AJ Brown always has been super efficient on a low volume of passes. He's just not being super efficient right now. And he's also coming back off of, a hamstring? I'm not worried about AJ Brown even a little bit. If anyone in your league is panicking, you had to make a move and try to get you some AJ Brown, but absolutely no concern on this end. No concern on this side of the table.
Yeah, no concern on this side of the table either. It's frustrating. Like I have AJ Brown and Stephon Diggs are like two of my highest rostered premier wide receivers. And, I keep saying on Twitter every day, I'm like, you don't have to worry about these guys. They're going to be fine. At the same time, it's like, it'd be really nice if I had some fantasy points because I'd also like to win games. But, in the future, you can't trade for fantasy points that have already happened. So AJ Brown is A-OK. He's super talented. His target share in the games he's actually finished this season, it's like 23, 22, and 27. That's right around where he's always been his whole career. I think he probably would have been fine last week. It's just that they only completed 14 passes because they got way up in front and they stopped running. They're playing Buffalo this week, and they're playing Kansas City. So they're probably going to have to pass in those games because they're probably going to lose both of those games. And that means I think A.J. Brown is going to be able to turn that 25% target share hopefully into more like 9-10 targets. And that would be really, really nice to see. You hold A.J. Brown and you start A.J. Brown unless you have three significantly elite options. Jamal, Mr. Brooklyn Land says, should I pick up T.Y. Hilton as a bench flyer just to see what he looks like? It always depends on who you're dropping. I would say it depends on how many wide receivers you're eligible to start, because I think that if you're in like a classic 2 or 3 wide receiver, 1 flex league, I think that there's higher upside uses of a bench spot than T.Y. Hilton. But if you're starting like potentially up to 5-6 wide receivers, I think certainly, because Paris Campbell hasn't even beaten out Zach Pascal, so he's not really a factor. Zach Pascal is Zach Pascal, so he's not really a factor. I think Hilton could easily step in as the number 2 from Michael Pittman and as the primary deep threat. And like I said, Wentz has been playing a lot better, so I'm not against it. If you have to start like 5-6 wide receivers, I picked up Hilton in a couple places where I have to start 6 wide receivers because I think he could be a bye week filler. How do you feel about Ghost?
Yeah, again, it's like you just said, it depends on who I need to drop to get him. I'm fine with picking him up. Look, until T.Y. is not playing football anymore, I'm still going to believe that if he can just get healthy, there's going to be a week where he drops 200 yards on someone because it'll happen. We'll see. That's why you pick him up as a bench flyer. Yeah, I'd rather have him on my bench than have to go chase him waivers. And it's in his range of outcomes where he could have a blow-up week. So I'll just keep him on my bench, assuming I don't have to drop anyone of significant value. We've seen it with Deshaun Jackson this year. We've seen it with A.J. Green this year. These older wide receivers, you're not going to get it every single week, but there's going to be weeks where they find that fountain of youth, and it sends you back down the time machine to 2015. I'm not going to lie. As a Colts fan, and T.Y. Hilton is one of my favorite players of all time, and I'm not going to lie, the second that I saw him return to practice, I went to youtube.com and I watched T.Y. Hilton highlights for 15 minutes, and I felt warm and fuzzy feelings. And I'm very happy that Ghost is coming back for real football. We'll see what he does for fake football. Let's as we let the questions continue to percolate, let's address quarterback as our first in the start of the week, like we tend to do. I'll go first, Shane, so you can have time to pick one. Oh, I need to look them up. What am I looking at? ESPN? Yeah, you just go in the ESPN Fantasy Football Rankings. We can do PPR or half. I don't really care. Whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter for quarterback anyway. So here's what we do every week. We pick
a quarterback outside the top 15, a tight end outside the top 15, and a running back and a wide receiver outside the top 24 that we think will finish inside of that mark and hopefully even inside the top 12. I don't have the scores from last week because Chase tabulates that. I know that I picked Hunter Henry again, and he had a monster game, so I'm forever indebted to Hunter Henry on this program. I can't remember who else I picked. I don't really remember who Shane picked. I don't remember who Chase picked. But we were pretty close before that, so I imagine we're probably still pretty close.
I'm winning, actually.
Really? Because you were in last week. Did you have a big week this week?
It's crazy.
Turn it around?
Yeah.
Incredible work. All right, I'll go first while I give you a little bit of time. But my quarterback this week, I just talked about him. It's Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz coming off of a vintage Carson performance, 402 passing yards, and they didn't get the ball in overtime. So that's all regulation passing yards on Monday night. And this week he gets to build off that performance potentially with a healthy T.Y. Hilton, and he gets to play the Houston Texans. Every quarterback outside of Mac Jones that has played the Houston Texans this year has managed to put up 21 or more fantasy points. Carson Wentz is next in line. He can still run around a little bit. He's gaining some of his athleticism back after recovering from all of those foot and ankle injuries. He's been passing the ball well. The Colts have a really high total this week. I think that they're probably going to obliterate Houston. And give me Carson Wentz as a decent bet to pass for a couple of touchdowns this week. Shane, who's your quarterback?
I don't like any of them outside the top 12, but if I have to pick someone, which apparently I do, that's part of the show. That's the shtick. Let me go with I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins. I feel like Carolina's defense is a little fugazi. Eagles, really didn't do much against them except in the second half when they really needed to. They did whatever they wanted. Devonta Smith used and abused them. I'll go. Yeah. That's what I'm going to go with.
Sounds good. All right. Let's answer a couple of these questions.
Let's do it. Let's get through one more position. What do we got? Running back?
All right, running back. Yeah, I'll go. I'm going to go with Damian Harris. He's ranked all the way down. Sorry?
You think he's going to play?
Isn't he fine? I thought he was fine.
I don't know. Last I heard he had a chest injury.
Okay. Well, actually, you know what? I have a better one then. All right.
Mine. You can't have him.
Nope, I'll take him. Well, we mentioned this Eagles-Tampa game on Thursday night. And basically, the Eagles are going to have to pass the entire game for two reasons. Actually, three reasons. Number one, they would do that regardless because Nick Sirianni has never heard of the run. Number two, you can't run on Tampa whatsoever. Number three, they're going to get absolutely spanked by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so I expect them to be passing early and often. And when they do that, they usually play Kenny Gainwell. So I'm going to pick Kenny Gainwell this week to come in. We saw Myles Gaskin catch 10 balls and 2 touchdowns against Tampa last week. We could maybe see some similar usage out of Kenny Gainwell, maybe half the snaps, maybe 6-8 targets, 6-8 carries, and I'm going to say a touchdown for good measure. Shane, who's your running back?
All right, well, you didn't take the guy. Same game. I'm going to have to go with Leonard Fournette.
Is he outside the top 24? How? He's number 16.
24.
He's number 16.
Oh, I don't understand our game. I'm sorry. Outside the top 24, I'm gonna go with I don't like any of these guys, really.
Yeah, that's the point of the game. It's hard.
But I really just like all of them. I'm just going to go with Jamal Williams. I'm just going to go with because they keep using him half the time. He's getting a ton of carries and targets. So I'm going with Jamal Williams.
Yeah, I don't mind the Jamal Williams call. I had a tweet this week. Well, I have a lot of tweets. But one that I thought was particularly good was that the Cincinnati Bengals, 4 of the 5 opponents that the Cincinnati Bengals have had this year, have tied or beaten their season high in targets to the running back position. In total, Cincinnati has given up a league-high 46 targets to running backs. The only team in the NFL that's thrown more than 46 times to running backs is the Detroit Lions, and that's their Week 6 opponent. So I think you should feel especially good about Swift this week, but of course he's rightfully in the top 24. But maybe Jamal Williams gets some of those trickle-down economics receptions this week in that battle of the cats. We'll come back to wide receiver. Let's get a couple more questions out of here. They just did this trade. Shane, trade alert.
Trade alert?
Najee, A.J. Brown, and T. Higgins for Kamara, Justin Jefferson, and Odell Beckham Jr. I'm going to assume redraft.
Wow.
And it's half PPR. So Najee, AJ, and T. So Najee for Kamara, AJ and T for Justin Jefferson and OBJ. Which side do you like? You are the official trade ambassador of this podcast.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the AJ Brown, T Higgins side. AJ Brown and Justin Jefferson are close enough that the distance between T Higgins and OBJ is really vast. It's not made up there. Whereas Najee and Kamara are, again, they're close enough. So I'll go with the Najee, AJ Brown, and T Higgins side. And that's actually, if it was Dynasty, I'd still take that side. But yeah, in redraft, I'll take that side.
Yeah, I think this is a fair trade. First of all, I think it's a fair trade. It's a pretty even trade. I can definitely see either side. I probably actually prefer Najee even to Kamara rest of the season, to be honest. Especially with Juju out, he might even get more checkdowns since Juju does a lot of his work in the short area of the field. I think it kind of comes down to AJ Brown because I think T is clearly ahead of OBJ. Najee and Kamara, I think, are pretty similar. And so it's just, what is that gap between Brown and Jefferson? I'd certainly rather have Jefferson, but I still don't think it's a seismic gap. I think Brown is going to recover and get stuff righted. So I prefer that side just by a small margin, but it's close. Thoughts on Dan Arnold? What are your thoughts on Dan Arnold?
Yeah.
That's the best you come up with.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a guy.
That's what we pay you the big bucks for, Shane. Yeah.
I assume you picked them up, right? That's what I'm going to assume.
I don't know. Maybe they're asking if they should pick him up.
Yes.
Maybe they just want to know our thoughts on him as a person. Is he a gentle lover, for instance?
I don't like him a lot. I'm not going to lie to you. He's not.
Have you met him?
No, but I mean, what, he put up 6 receptions.
Did he say something inappropriate?
So here's the thing. So he fumbled early last week, right? Wasn't that like the first quarter he fumbled?
He did, but they kept targeting him.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I love that they kept targeting him. I could be wrong, but I think his 8 targets might have led the team.
It was him or Jamal Agnew.
Yeah. So he's a guy that I'm fine with picking up and plugging in because he's definitely a streaming option.
I'm super into Dan Arnold, actually, because first of all, I mean, they traded their 9th overall pick from last year for this guy, which is horrendously idiotic, but it shows how much they like him. They've also shown a desire to target the tight end this year. I mean, James O'Shaughnessy is just the most just a guy player imaginable. And they were targeting him about 20% of the routes before he got injured. Then they got Dan Arnold, who's actually athletic. He's a converted wide receiver. He led the league, I believe, in air yards at tight end last year. He gets targets down the field, which is interesting at tight end. So even if he only gets 4 targets in a game, sometimes he can still break a big play. He had 20% of the targets last week. They want to throw to the tight end. They lost DJ Chark. I'm really into Dan Arnold. I think he has legitimate upside to be a top 12 to 15 tight end the rest of the year. At the very least, he's a decent streamer every given week. So thumbs up for me on Dan Arnold. Can Hollywood and Debo keep up their current pace? Can they finish top 12, or do they swing back to the median soon?
I love Hollywood. He's a guy that I beat the drums for his rookie year. Second year, really beat the drums. He had a really good second half of the season. He's been lights out so far this year. Problem is his touchdowns. He's scoring on 13.1% of his targets this year. Entering the year, it was 8.7. So he's definitely due for some touchdown regression. And at some point, you got to expect Rashad Bateman to step on the field, steal some of that work.
Yeah, I think this week.
Yeah. So I love Hollywood. The touchdown scoring is a little heavy, so he's going to regress a little bit. Top 12, I think he could finish right outside the top 12, maybe 15. Debo, I expect him to get injured, and I expect Ayuk to step up as John Lynch ordered him to do so.
And fuck that guy, by the way. not Ayuk, but Lynch and Shannon. Fuck both of them. I'm so sick. I tweeted about this earlier. I am so beyond tired of these coaches gaslighting their players for things that they're not responsible for. I mean, Denzel Mims is like the most obvious case because they barely even let him play. He has the highest PFF grade of any wide receiver on the team. They've let him play, I think, 10 snaps. In those 10 snaps, he's caught 3 balls for like 100 yards. And they continue to trot Keelan Cole onto the field. And they're saying, Denzel Mims can't get reps because he doesn't play special teams. Oh, he's got to show. I mean, come on, guys. Give me a break. The dude's like 6'3". He runs a 4.35. And every time that they've thrown the ball to him, he makes plays. I mean, Laviska Shenault comes out there. They threw him 1 ball, and he broke like 4 tackles and ran for 60 yards. It's like, maybe he should get those bubble screens instead of freaking Tavon Austin, who hasn't been relevant since maybe 2007. They were still making NCAA football the last time that I cared about Tavon Austin. And the Ayuk situation, I mean, he hasn't taken the step we wanted. I mean, watching that game, I watched every snap of that game live, and then I watched every snap of that game on the All-22 because I quite like Lance and I quite like Ayuk, and Shanahan irks me. He was open constantly. Lance is basically playing one-read football. So however Shanahan is scheming the play to go is pretty much who Lance is throwing to. I'm not saying that to slander Lance. Like, this was his first NFL start. He's going to get better, but he's just not right now as a passer. Ayuk was constantly open. Lance, at one point, threw it directly over a wide-open Ayuk's head with no one within 10 yards of him to throw it to his double-covered fullback, which was unfortunate. And then when Ayuk did actually get targets, on one play, he caught the ball one-handed, holding the defender, then juked 3 tacklers and converted a 2nd and 25, and was immediately subbed off the field. I just don't understand what Lynch and Shanahan are talking about, frankly. So anyway, that's my rant. It just aggravates the shit out of me to watch this young player who's clearly better. I mean, they talk about these wide receiver rotations. Like, he's so obviously better than Travis Benjamin and Trent Sherfield and who's the other one? Mohamed Sanu. I mean, it's just absurd. It's not about him versus Debo. Like, whenever you're like, oh my God, I should get more opportunities. Well, Debo's earned his. Yeah, I'm not talking about Debo. I'm just saying every single time that the wide receivers run a pass play, Debo should be on one side and Ayuk should be on the other. It should just be that simple. But as for the actual question, I think that Debo's more likely to finish top 12 just based on the way that offense is totally built around him. I do think Bateman walks into Sammy Watkins' targets and does a lot better than Sammy Watkins would do because he's better. And I think Hollywood's maybe more of that high-end wide receiver too. I think probably that's what Debo is too, but I would say it's maybe a little bit more likely with him. I think that I think he can do a little bit more after the catch. It seems that offense really wants to just feature him exclusively in a way that the Ravens haven't been. Like, Hollywood has been taking advantage of his opportunities, but they're not really funneling the ball to him as much. They're also getting Andrews involved quite a bit. They were getting Watkins involved quite a bit as well. So we'll see on that one, but that's definitely an interesting question. Trying to go down these questions here. Picked up Mack and Bateman. Thoughts? Also, Tyson Williams is being shot. Should I stash him as well? I'll go quick. Yeah, I think Mack is interesting if the Kansas City rumor comes true, because if he goes to Kansas City, he's instantly their best running back until Clyde returns. So I think Mack is worth a stash for that reason. And Bateman is 100% worth a stash. I don't think we're going to get a league winner this year, but you should definitely stash him because he's an extremely good prospect. And we've seen that Baltimore passes the ball now. I don't really care about Tyson Williams because they don't care about Tyson Williams. They use so many running backs.
Yeah, they don't like Tyson. I heard a couple people railing about it. He does legitimate, like, bad football things, like missing blocks and fumbling and things that, you know what I mean, actually hurt your team. So they don't like him. So I would not stash Tyson Williams. Bateman, yeah, I love him. And Mack is very interesting if he ends up in Kansas City. And if he doesn't, then, whatever, you can let go of him a little later.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let's go quick because we only got about 10 minutes left. We're going to work through these rapid fire, and then we're going to do our wide receiver and our tight end. I now have Mahomes, CMC, Kamara, Hill, Jefferson, McLaurin, Hunt, Goddard, and Tampa D. What's the question?
Do you think he's just showing off? Good job, Mike.
Okay, great job, Mike. Do y'all believe in James Robinson now or not? Depends what you What do you mean by believe? Do I believe he exists? Yes. Do I believe he's good at football? Yes. Do I believe he'll be an RB1 the rest of the season? Probably no, because they continue to lose games, and he's probably not going to score 2 touchdowns a game any longer. But I think he's like a rock-solid RB2. What do you think?
I mean, I think I called for him to be a running back one, him and Darrell Henderson before the season, right? So nothing I've seen's changed that, except for the first game when Urban Meyer decided that Carlos Hyde, for some reason, needed to ever play football again. Yeah, I think they're going to be down a lot, but hopefully they'll use him in the passing game. And I think Urban's embarrassed if he has feelings of shame. Well, about many things, but about the fact that he forgot he wasn't on the field last week or didn't know he wasn't on the field last week. So, yeah, I still believe in James Robinson this year.
Do y'all like Herbert, or do you guys like Herbert just at 44 points, or Jalen Hurts tomorrow night? I like both. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
I'd probably play Hurts, just he's been a little more consistent because he runs so much. But I have no issue if you play Herbert. I mean, they're both like super elite.
Yeah. So here's the thing with Hurts, right? And I only know this because I'm an Eagles fan, so I get to watch all the games. So I get to see that he has 9 points entering the middle of the third quarter, and then has to rush for 2 touchdowns to end up what looks like a really good day. And, look, at the end of the day, the points are the points, right? It's just a hard way to live. I feel like Herbert is safer. So I'm going to go with Herbert. But like Jacob said, I wouldn't be mad at you if you went with Hurts, because at some point he probably is he's going to have like 10 fantasy points going into the third quarter. And you're going to be like, oh my God, why did I do this? And then I'll end up with 35.
Yeah. Fournette or Booker? Fournette for me.
Yeah, Fournette.
I want to pick up T.Y., but Waddle is the only drop candidate. No, I would keep Waddle.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Not sure what he did, but he did something.
He directed that team. We were telling him he did good.
Oh, okay. Good job, Mike. Herbert's bye is next week. My top options are Wentz and Tua. I want to pick up one this week. No, don't do that. You already have Tua on the IR. Well, then, if you already have Tua on the IR, then you don't have to pick up anybody. And you can just scramble because it doesn't really matter. It's 1 week. You can just stream. I would not worry about that now. But if you have Tua on the IR, then you're fine anyway. I wouldn't stress about it personally. Hurts or waivers? Hurts. He's like the QB5 overall.
Yeah.
Hurts.
Yes.
Hurts over most people.
Yeah.
Shanahan is trying to play the Belichick mad genius shtick. Problem is he's missing the 6 Super Bowl rings. Yeah, he's had 1 winning season in his life. Fuck that entitled little prick.
Yeah, that's too many head coaches in the NFL want to show you how smart they are instead of, or tell you how smart they are and just exhibit it. Just win games. That shows me how smart you are.
Drop Crowder for Ty. Neutral. I don't know. They're the same person to me.
I don't know. The only reason I'd say no is because Crowder's actually active right now. But there's really nothing to differentiate the two.
All right. Speaking of wide receivers that we can't differentiate, we're going to give our wide receiver and our tight end before we get on out of here. Reminder, Shane, it's outside the top 24. Can you handle outside the top 24?
Yeah, now I get it. That's a little harder. I'm going to go, look, the guys on the this is easy for me. We've talked about him 16 times tonight. Michael Pittman against Houston. The guy gets, 7 to 11 targets every week.
Yeah.
Scores touchdowns. He catches balls all over the field. You can't stop Pittman at this point. So I'm going with Pittman.
I don't even understand how this guy's outside the top 24. It's like I said with DJ Moore a couple weeks ago. But Hollywood Brown is at wide receiver 1 so far this year. He's ranked at wide receiver 26, and he's playing in the game with the highest over-under on the slate. What are we doing? He's like one of my top 6 wide receivers this week. I think it's absolutely insane that he's ranked outside the top 24. Bateman is returning this week, but I mean, Sammy Watkins is probably out this week. He pulled a hamstring, and Sammy Watkins' hamstring injuries usually last a month to a career. So I would just expect that Bateman walks into the Watkins role at most, or probably less than that because it's his first week off injury. So I think it's Hollywood Brown for me. And then we've got to do the true chuck a dart into the air. And we've got to pick a tight end ranked outside of the top 15. I'll lead off. It's very sad. I can no longer pick Hunter Henry. He's finally graduated.
Yes.
But I will go ahead and I'll pick the guy that we already talked about today. I'm going to pick Dan Arnold. He's athletic. He runs a lot of routes. He's seen a lot of targets. That's enough for me. Dan Arnold. Who you got?
We got to go outside the top 15?
Yeah.
I don't like any of these guys again.
You keep saying that, and that continues to be the point of the game.
Yeah, I don't like any of them. Like, legitimately, I guess, like, I'd want to say Njoku, but you're chasing points at that point. But honestly, looking at the bottom 15 tight ends, it makes me sad inside. I can't keep picking Evan Ingram because he's shown that he refuses to catch the football. It's not part of his skill set, apparently. I'm going to chase.
He almost got to 10 points last week. He was really close.
I'm going to chase the points, and I'll go with Njoku. It's not good process. So
Bad process. I feel the same way, preferring Herbert over Hurts. One of these days, Hurts will fail to save his sucky score in the fourth quarter. Also, if not for a blocked punt, he would have had 14 points. Yeah, he's also had 5 touchdowns called back by penalty. So I'll say this for Hurts. If we want to play the if not for X game, Hurts has also been a victim of the if not for X game many times. So
this is true.
I stand in Hurts' corner. Although, I'm not going to argue that you should definitely play him over Herbert. I mean, Herbert's an elite play each and every week. So, however, I do feel strongly you should play Hurts over waivers.
Yes. Don't play waivers. Don't start waivers.
Yeah. All right. Shane, we've hit it. We've done this. We got through an hour without Chase. We had very few references to Colin Johnson, Donovan Peoples-Jones. That was a success. Where can people find you?
Oh, at Shane is the worst. Dynasty Trades HQ podcast, Mannequin Show, YouTube on the DLF YouTube. New thing doing Dynasty Trades in 5, doing a 5-minute video thing every night on trades. Writing at DLF, writing at fantasydata.com, and I think that is it.
Ever growing is Shane Manila. Who would win if Herbert and Hurts fought in the street fight? This is not close. It's Hurts for sure.
Only because Herbert, he's kind of goofy. Like I don't know that he has that dog in him.
There's
like in a street fight.
Herbert has ever been in a street fight in his life. No.
Although I don't know that. I got to be honest with you. I don't think Hurts has ever been either.
Are you kidding me? He's lived in Philly for the last 2 years.
That's true. He probably has to get fight every day just to get to his car. That's true. Yeah.
You probably someone came up and stole his cab, and you probably ended up in a fight in the middle of the street. You know how it'd be on those streets.
Where can we find you, Jacob?
You can find me on Twitter, ff_RTDB. You can find my work on playerprofiler.com. I do a weekly DFS article on there called The Pareto Principles. I also do the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast with Big Billy FF and Thomas Tipple every Friday. And I have my own DFS show every Saturday. No free squares. Both of those are on the Full Tilt Dynasty Network. You can also find me in a few different places recently. I recently hopped on a podcast with the great Rich Rebar, and it's maybe slightly outdated. It was previous to last week, but it was pretty general. It's pretty strategy focused, so I think a lot of it still applies. So I was on the podcast with him on Sharp Angles, and then I was also on First Mover to talk about this week's DFS slate with Josh Larkey. So you can find me in a lot of places, and otherwise you can find me up here in the Pacific Northwest with my umbrella at the ready at all times. So otherwise, that is all we got for you tonight. Thank you very much to everyone who joined us from YouTube, from Twitter, from Fantasy Football Discussion. Thank you for the questions, because I didn't write a show sheet and we really didn't have to do that much ad-libbing. So you kept us going. I appreciate it. You let us fill a full 59 minutes and 25 seconds of your time. Everybody, have a great week and good luck in all of your